first National Trans Visibility March took place on September 28, 2019 in Washington, D.C. With over 5,300 attendees, this historic event brought together both transgender individuals and allies from all over the United States.
We are tired of fighting for our country on foreign soil and then being told that we are no longer fit to serve. We are tired of our murders going without any justice and our murderers out there free. We want to be free, and that's why we are here. I want you to repeat after me. I am here. I am here. Yes, ma'am. We need to take back our narrative. We are not victims. We are not statistics. We are not tragedies. We are waiting to thrive, and this is our best year yet, because we aren't here simply to be visible. We are here to be victorious. So when we move forward today, let us press forward with purpose, let us press forward with passion, and let us know that the fight has just begun.
Hi, good evening. Thank you all for giving us the opportunity to present tonight and discuss thriving in business. My name is Stephen Gabrielle. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I am our Vice President of Business Development for the LGBTQ2+ community at TD Bank in the U.S. At TD Bank, diversity and inclusion is important to us, and working in our communities is extremely important to make sure we're inclusive of everyone around. And tonight we have a fantastic panel of some extremely successful entrepreneurs and a group that helps to amplify their voices and really make sure that the resources are getting connected to entrepreneurs so that they are successful. Tonight we have Sabrina Kent with us. Sabrina is a Senior Vice President at the NGLCC. Gavriel Legynd, he is the President at Visioneer. And Gabrielle Claiborne, who is the CEO and co-founder of Transformation Journeys Worldwide. Welcome, and thank you all for being a part of the second Trans Visibility March and our opportunity to showcase some of the amazing work you've all done for the community.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks for having
I'd love to give each an opportunity to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do for your business and how long you've been in business for. We want to start with Sabrina.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steve. Thank you to TD for hosting tonight's program. And thank you, of course, to everybody at the National Trans Visibility March. My name is Sabrina Kent. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am a Senior Vice President at the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. We are the sole certifying for LGBT-owned businesses, meaning that businesses that want to gain access to contracting opportunities with corporations and with one another, so long as they're owned by LGBT folks, are eligible for certification. And we use that certification to create opportunities, to open the economic doors for the LGBT community and provide a seat at the business table where there hasn't historically been one. So thanks for having us here today.
That's amazing. And if we'd like to move over to Gabrielle.
Hey, thank you all so much for inviting me to be here. I'm really excited, especially TD Bank and Stephen. I really appreciate this opportunity to be part of this panel. But my name is Gabrielle Legynd, and I am the CEO of Visioneer IT, which is a marketing and technology firm. We specialize in marketing software development, technology, reputation management, also known as cybersecurity. And we service small and medium-sized businesses, and our key differentiator is that we not only build a company's brand, but we help secure the reputation of the brand. And we are located in Baltimore, Maryland.
Very nice. A local one in our footprint, and local to the DC also. And Gabrielle.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Stephen and TD Bank, for being very intentional in having these conversations today. I think, raising the visibility of trans and gender nonconforming business owners is very near and dear to my heart, and I know it's also near to Sabrina and Gabrielle's. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am the CEO of Transformation Journeys Worldwide. We are an inclusion training and consulting firm with a transgender focus. So we help a myriad of organizations on their journey of transforming their environments and creating fully trans and non-binary inclusive culture. So we help these organizations not only attract and retain the best talent in the marketplace, but create innovative solutions for in creating that inclusive workplace culture. I'm also an author and a TEDx speaker, and one of the great volunteer opportunities that I have is working with my co-chair Gabrielle on the Trans Inclusion Task Force with the NGLCC Trans Inclusion Task Force. Thank you. And I know we'll speak more to about that in a little bit, but so glad to be here with you all.
Thank you. It's amazing to hear, what you've all done and how you've built your brands. And that's something that is really, really important, as a business owner goes out there. And, I think it's our personal experiences add into our journey as a business owner also. And, I'd love to hear, maybe if Gabrielle, if you could start, a personal, how you've used your personal journey and your personal experiences to shape your business and how you do business.
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I'm very passionate about, because in many ways my business is modeled after my own personal journey. So from that perspective, the two can't be separated. And even as my personal journey continues to evolve, so does my business. So, for example, after 8 years of building various businesses as my authentic self, I, with the help of my colleagues here on this panel today, we're actually working to mentor other TGNC business owners so that we're setting themselves up for success wherever they are in their vocational journey. It's also, as I settle more comfortably into my true gender, I am now becoming more passionate about helping organizations expand the conversation around gender equity, making sure that, this conversation, including women's equity, includes all of the women that identify as women, and there's a place at the table for those voices to be heard. So in many ways, not only am I doing what I love, but I'm doing what I love. And for me, that's purposeful living.
I think that's great to hear. And, it seems like becoming your authentic self and really being able to live it helped you just make a business that was something you love to do every day. And that's something we all want. We all want to love
Absolutely
what we're doing.
Yes.
Gabrielle, I'd love to hear a little bit about how your experiences have kind of helped shape the way you do business also.
So I think my entire business was built around my experience, and here's why. So I wanted to create a workplace where authenticity and hard work were really the cornerstones of the business. My goal was to be able to gainfully employ marginalized groups, whether they be Black, other ethnic minorities, women, and those in the LGBT community who otherwise may not be able to find employment where they can show up authentically. I think everyone here can agree that attitude is a reflection of leadership. And I always envision my employees' attitude in their work to directly reflect the safe space that I was creating.
That's great. And, I love the fact that you both are giving back to your community and bringing jobs and creating wealth by doing that. And it's so important. Safe space, is really important, and we talk about it a lot. So it's nice to see that you're creating that safe space at your business. Every entrepreneur has a fear of starting a business. There's never the right time to start a business. It's never easy. Everything that we've gone through this year with COVID and essential versus not essential has kind of, threw some other wrenches into the starting a business, and that courage that it takes to start a business is sometimes hard for a lot of people to find and go out on their own. And this goes out to all three of you. What was your fear starting a business? Or Sabrina, what fear have you seen people have, and how did you overcome it? Because I think that is, that overcoming that first step is really what makes a successful entrepreneur.
Do you want me to start? Okay. Well, I mean, obviously you have the advice of my two esteemed colleagues here who can tell you firsthand, but I'm a daughter of two business owners. My brother is a business owner. My grandfathers before before my parents were also business owners. So I come from a long line of business owners, and I get the joy of working with LGBT business owners every day in my job. My partner is also a business owner. And so, I sort of get it from all angles of my life. I don't know how I missed the entrepreneur bug myself, but I will say that the biggest thing I think is, for me, sitting as an outsider looking in, is I see so much bravery, right, and courage to say I have this idea and I think it will matter to people, and therefore I'm going to invest myself into it and put all of my resources really on the line to provide something, whether it's a good or a service, but something that they feel so strongly about. That they are going to put everything on the line to make it happen. And so for me, I think one of the biggest fears is just taking the leap of faith and doing it and saying, I'm going to put my all into this and I'm going to make it happen for me. And in many cases, as it relates to the LGBT community as well, as Gabrielle said, paying it back to the communities that we belong to.
So I'll jump in here. Whether you want to call it your biggest fear, the biggest hurdle that you've had to overcome, I can tell you that the one that I had to overcome was, could I actually survive financially following the desires of my heart, doing what I love? Would clients actually recognize the value that I could bring to them as something that be worthwhile to invest in? So, prior to starting Transformation Journeys Worldwide, I had a well-established cleaning and home renovation company that I started early on in my transition, and these businesses were birthed out of survival. But over time, I reached a point where they no longer worked for me. They no longer resonated for me, and I had to make a decision. Am I going to stay confined into this business that doesn't serve me, or do I need to expand and follow my heart's desire? So I was in my mid-50s, and I don't want to see anybody doing math in their head and wondering if I could actually start another business. Well, I can tell you that after 5 years, I now know that was one of the best vocational decisions that I ever made in my life, because like Sabrina said, I had to muster up the courage to actually have the courage to follow my heart. Now, that's not to say times have all been easy, but over time, as in our business, we've kind of developed ourselves as a thought leader in the industry, which has kind of established us as a go-to company when it comes to TGNC organizational inclusion. So it's actually following my heart that's actually positioned me to excel in the way that I have.
I love that. That's such great advice, to follow your heart, because then you get to do what you love every day.
Exactly.
And I'll say that we get to do that.
Yes.
So, Gabriel, what about you?
So to be honest, my fear was honestly being outed as a trans man. I had a long stint in technology, and I knew that I would definitely make it. But my fear was really heightened early on in my entrepreneurial journey when I was working with several military individuals who thought it was acceptable to tease a fellow veteran who happened to be a trans woman. It not only kept me closeted for the majority of my 15-year transition, but it also made me feel extremely unsafe. A few years ago, I finally decided to come out and be open about my journey. And honestly, being part of NGLCC Network and meeting Sabrina and company helped me overcome that fear. And it's been an amazing experience to work alongside the whole entire community. And we'll talk a little bit more about community as we go on in some of these other questions, because that's a big piece of it.
You know, I think that's a fear that most people have, is being outed and you know, being able to live your authentic self. And I think it's courageous to share that. And I think that is probably why you're doing so well in business, because you're able to be yourself now. You talked a little bit about kind of the programs and the partnerships that kind of helped with that piece. And I'd love to talk a little bit about some of the programs that the NGLCC has to support businesses, especially trans-owned businesses. And, you know, I want to start with Sabrina, because we've got a great piece here, because we have our co-chairs of the task force here, but we also have two people that have been through programs at the NGLCC. So, you know, Sabrina, if you want to talk to us a little bit about the programs, and then Gabrielle and Gavriel, if you kind of add a little bit to how you've used the programs as a business owner and now are a mentor with them.
Sure.
Excellent. Well, you know, I would say let's start with conference under usual circumstances. But given that this is the year of coronavirus, things are a little different. We didn't meet in person, but we've tried to use the value that suppliers get out of our conferences and in-person events and replicate those spaces virtually. And I think it's been interesting to see the programs that we've created that are now going to be things that are going to stick through well beyond whatever this COVID period looks like for NGLCC. But the bottom line is really about creating opportunity, as I said before. So putting business owners in the right spaces to either gain access to the tools and resources they need to grow and scale, or to put them directly face-to-face with buyers or corporate supplier diversity professionals that are going to want to procure goods and services from them. I'll let Gabrielle and Gabriel talk a bit about what they're leading with the NGLCC Mentorship Committee through the NGLCC TGNC Task Force. But on a holistic level, I think one of the greatest programs we're doing right now is our LGBT Sip and Pitch Fridays program, where twice a month, 6 businesses get the opportunity to pitch before a live panel of corporate judges and the rest of the NGLCC network. So while we're the national organization, we work with over 270 corporate partners who accept our certification. And we have over 65 affiliate LGBT chambers of commerce in the US and globally. And so one of our sort of core tenets in creating the Sip and Pitch Fridays program was making sure that our local affiliate businesses that are not yet certified with the NGLCC also have the ability to pitch through this competition and get some exposure for their goods and services. And we've seen a lot of organic business generated as a result. But the other piece of it is mentoring, right? Going in front of an audience of 65 people or more to in a panel of 3 corporate experts to pitch your products and services. That's valuable information to understand what you make of 5 minutes when you are rubbing shoulders with somebody at a bar, or you're put in these speed networking rooms on Zoom. So Sip and Pitch Fridays is a great tool. Our NGLCC Webinar Wednesdays program, free weekly educational programming by and for the LGBT community and by our corporate partner and affiliate network as well. And then the NGLCC Accelerate Certified LGBTBE Capacity Development Program. That is a 6-week accelerator program. I'm going to let Gavriel speak to that a bit, where we have experts from MIT School of Cybersecurity, GW School of Business, Mark Bertolini, former CEO and chairman of Aetna, come in and really sit down and workshop with these businesses once a week for 6 weeks for a 2-hour period, and really to meet you where you are on your entrepreneurial journey and see what you need to grow and scale to make it to the next level or to take the business wherever you want to go. So I'm going to pause. That's a lot of information, but I'd love Gabrielle and Gabrielle to chime in as well.
Well,
Go
I'll
ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
I'll go ahead and jump in. So as Sabrina was talking a little bit about the Accelerate program, I ended up, I don't know if we graduated or not, but it was at the end of the 6-week program, and it was awesome. As she mentioned, we had many speakers of the 6-week program, and we got an amazing book to go along with all of that. That really has helped me think differently about my business. You can't sit in, a 6-week program and not feel impacted when you get to have the opportunity to hear, some of these greats tell you all of where they've been and what they've done and the amazing work that that they've done over their lifespan of of their work. So I really have enjoyed that program. Additionally, as Gabrielle was talking, we both co-chair the Trans Inclusion Task Force Mentorship Committee, and we're really looking forward to growing out that program and creating additional programming around how we can help mentor other trans-owned businesses. So I'll let Gabrielle speak a little bit about what we're doing on the committee.
Yeah, we're actually, and the beautiful thing about this is Sabrina and the NGLCC is kind of given us the reins to create this based off of our own personal experience, which I feel like I totally respect and am grateful for, because I feel like a lot of the content is going to be birthed out of our own personal experience. So Gabrielle and I and a couple of other members of the mentorship committee is actually developing some curriculum to meet a trans business owner where they are, wherever they are in their wherever they are in their entrepreneurial journey. So whether or not it's at the very beginning of inception of an idea, all the way to a seasoned entrepreneur who perhaps may have already achieved their certification, the LGBT Business Enterprise certification, and everywhere in between. So we're actually trying to set these TGNC business owners up for success, making sure that, again, meeting them where they are and providing them the resources that they need. But I'll tell you, there's a couple of things that I've personally experienced when it comes to the benefits of NGLCC, and that is, you kind of started going there, Sabrina, and that is at these conferences. I was supposed to be at my third one this year, but it got postponed because of the pandemic. But, having an opportunity to sit down face to face with your ideal client, you're across the table in a matchmaking setting, right? Where for example, my ideal client is a Fortune 500 company and a B2B relationship. B2B is small business to small business. So positioning myself in front of those prospective clients, having those conversations, building the relationships, making the touches in order to position yourself to rise above the top when, someone is looking for the services that you're offering. That was a huge thing for me. And then I think the other thing about giving back to the community is, as both Gabrielle and I are certified business enterprises. And so that kind of helps us position ourselves in a place of advantage with our ideal client, because not only are we bringing a service to this client, but we're also helping them achieve their supplier diversity goals. So it's kind of a win-win relationship when they make an engagement with us.
And if I could as well, Gabrielle, just to jump off of that, that matchmaking space and what you're just talking about, the creating the relationship, right? It provides you opportunity to be in a room that otherwise is LGBT and TGNC business owners. Those spaces don't really exist for us right now.
Right.
And so I think there's something really special about that. We're just piloting, we're launching actually next week, our virtual matchmaking. Wait, it's this week. October is this week, people. Our virtual matchmaking program. We have the inaugural virtual matchmaker happening this week, but but we also are coordinating segment and industry specific matchmaking opportunities virtually. So there's going to be one coming up through our Communities of Color initiative, also through the TGNC task force. Hopefully in November, that program will be taking place. But again, trying to create these spaces for opportunity like Gabrielle's talking about, and then also the education piece. Gavriel's been a part of our mentorship program where you get paired with a corporate mentor for a year. So it's very important for us and the corporations and other businesses, I think, that participate at NGLCC. If Gavriel and Gabrielle are examples, it's really important to give back to this community. It becomes this sort of familial ecosystem along the way, which is pretty, I think, nice as well.
No, I love that you all talked about community. And I know from going to conferences and attending events virtually or in person, you build a community of individuals that you work with, and and it's very different than any other community, because I feel like our business owners and corporate partners all support each other and help uplift. I know that Gavriel, you talked a little bit about community before, and I guess what is the most important thing as a successful trans business owner that the community has done for you, and you feel like you can give back to the community?
I would say access to our corporate partners. I'd say that's huge. The other thing is access to the network of fellow, LGBTBEs, especially for those businesses that are really starting off, finding other certified LGBTBEs and really being able to partner with them. I'd say that definitely should be where you start. And that really is part of the community, and that can be huge. For instance, there's so many other, like in my vertical, technology and marketing companies that, if you find synergy with that company, partnering with them and seeing if you can go after, larger opportunities, because sometimes, larger companies don't necessarily, they're not able to work with some of the smaller fish, right? So finding, other companies that you can partner with that are in the NGLCC network can definitely help you in business. So I'd say between the network and access to opportunities with corporate partners are the two, biggest, resources and benefits of being part of this network.
Gabrielle, do you have any thoughts on community, and same question from
Yeah,
Gabrielle?
I can tell you that probably the biggest thing that I've been able to garnish is just being invited to show up and be visible and not have to worry about being ostracized or judged or put in a box, right? It's like, I could think there's a misnomer out there that people don't perceive trans and gender nonconforming individuals as competent and talented. But oh my gosh, we bring so much to the table. And I think, when you're not having to worry about, what somebody's reaction is going to be, you just go, you're all in, and you don't have to worry about that. And just being able to show up authentically without any reservation allows you to leave all that behind, and you just kind of focus and pour yourself into, your skill set that that you can do, that you've been doing for years. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've walked away with.
That's great. I think that's so important. We talk about it being our authentic selves, but if we don't have a welcoming community that we can't be our authentic selves in, we aren't at our top performing. We talk about it with employees at corporations. Right. How can we make the access to our employees better so that they can be top performers? It's the same thing in the business world.
Yeah, and I will say one more thing. The NGLCC, and I'm going to toot their horn for a minute, the NGLCC has been very intentional in raising the voices of trans and gender nonconforming business owners. I mean, they formed the TGNC Inclusion Task Force, and they asked for people to, volunteer and show up. So they're actually raising our voices. And I mean, if it had not been for that revenue, that avenue for us to show up that way, I mean, we would still be in the background.
And that's what I love about our community, is that we can all help each other raise voices and make it accessible for everyone. One of our comments I see is access, access, access. Yeah. Trying to find that is such a struggle, and it is. And that's why building that perfect group of individuals around you to help with finding all of those resources that are out there and connections is really what can help make you successful. Sometimes it's that one conversation that you have that can just make it all better and find that route. And you can't. You have to value every conversation that you have as a business owner, because you never know when that one conversation is going to help you find your next contract, or that better access to capital.
And Steve, if I can add to that, I think the other piece of access here is what that does for us on an advocacy level, by understanding the economic contributions of LGBT business owners. We released a study in 2016 that found that LGBT businesses in the US, they're an estimated 1.4 million, that they contribute an estimated $1.7 trillion annually to the US economy. That would be the 10th largest economy in the world. And part of what we're trying to do with the TGNC task force, because the data is sparse for LGBT people, then if you zero that into TGNC people and then TGNC people of color, we want to be able to understand what the economic contributions are of the TGNC business community. What does that look like? Because it's really hard to ignore us when we are paying taxes, when we're creating jobs, when we are staying in business longer than the average small business in the USA. So the average small business lasts for 5 years. LGBT businesses last on average 12 years, right? It's very hard to ignore us when we can prove how much we contribute to this economy, because unfortunately, not always does moral and ethnic righteousness lead the way in people's minds, especially when it comes to Washington. But unfortunately, for better or worse, the economics of it do. And that's another piece of access that is so vitally important right now.
So, it's so important that we show strength in our businesses. And that's what we've shown. It's unbelievable to see some of the industries that LGBTBEs make up. I think that's always fascinating. The revenue sizes, the length in business, and I spent years as a small business lender, and I can tell you that the average small business for an LGBT certified business is much longer than your average business in the U.S. So these are great things to hear, and it's inspirational to go out and start a business too. I'd love to talk a little bit about your first 12 months in business. If you had to take a look back at that, what would be some advice that you'd give to yourselves as to something you maybe would have done differently, or changed, and would it have changed the outcome later on?
So I'll jump in. I will tell you that advice that I would give myself when I first started my business is that you don't have to have all the answers to follow your heart and start the business of your dreams. It is impossible. I'm just going to lay this out there. It's impossible to calculate all the right moves. Some would say do the conventional upfront planning and preparation, things like developing a business plan, having access to some capital, doing marketing research to determine whether your business model is viable. And I am all for those. I am not talking down to those. But what I've learned in my own vocational journey is that it's as much about taking those frightening first steps and not necessarily knowing where those steps will lead. There will be those moments that you will be faced with uncertainty, but Building a fulfilling and sustainable business is not so much about mapping out the best laid plan, but rather it's about being courageous enough to embrace those events or circumstances that happen in your business that become the stepping stones that ultimately define your destination as a business owner.
I love that. Courage is so important. And, while we think we can plan for everything, I think 2020 has showed us that we just can't plan for everything.
Totally.
So, we learned some things this year that might have told us, to have some additional plans in place, but you can't always know what the outcome is going to be. And I love hearing that. Gabrielle, what about you?
So I would say a couple of things, and we've mentioned them a couple of times on here. So one of them would be building community and a network, building partnership, just jumping in, right? Jumping in and joining organizations. And then one of the biggest ones is asking for help, right? I think oftentimes we get kind of scared to ask for help. And oftentimes many people try to, go it alone, go this journey of entrepreneurship and starting a business all alone. But, what I realize is that there's power in finding people who support you and support your business, care about you, will advocate for you, and allow you to authentically really kind of show up in your business and elsewhere. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, teaming up with other businesses so that you don't feel like you're going it alone, right? Early on, I joined the Black Chamber of Commerce. I joined the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I joined a lot of organizations, right? And obviously in GLCC too, but, jumping in, being part of the community, finding your people, finding your voice, right? So that you really can show up in your business and for your employees and really for yourself.
I think finding your voice is so important as you lead a business and lead a team. If your voice is muted, your team isn't going to be as successful. So, finding that voice is so important. And, I love that we talked about how planning, you can't have everything planned out. And I'd love to know how, and this goes out to all three of you, how 2020 and COVID changed the way we do business. Have you changed anything that you've done with your day-to-day business or how you do business because of that? And would you have done it if this didn't happen?
Go ahead, Sabrina.
Well, I'll just say that I recently learned a statistic that at this point, it was 5 months since the March shutdowns in New York happened, that in the 5 months since March, that we've probably undergone 5 years of digital transformation as a global community, right? And obviously the way we do business is completely different from sitting at home in our pajamas. Like, full disclosure, I'm wearing sweatpants right now. Like, that piece of, I'm getting ready for a speaking engagement. I don't need to get on a flight. I don't need to get on a train or get in a car. I'm going to just make sure that I'm on Zoom at 6:45. There's that very simple piece, but just the transactional piece as well. I think about so many business owners that relied on, foot traffic coming through the doors of their businesses or restaurants, right? Sitting down at restaurants and eating their food, or just even how some of our business owners, I think Gabrielle is going to be able to speak to this as somebody who used to go into companies and literally talk to them in their offices, and now what you've had to pivot to sort of adjust and adapt to the times. We have an LGBT owned business that is an escape room, and they very quickly built out a virtual escape room that is amazing. Our corporate partners are utilizing their escape rooms to do team building virtually right now, because people are just connecting for meetings and not for, that water cooler conversation or team building atmosphere they used to get by being in person. A lot of promo product suppliers and vendors started, producing hand sanitizer, branded hand sanitizers, or just hand sanitizer, period, PPE in general, masks and so forth. And, the other reality, the sad reality, I would say, of it is that a lot of business owners have taken massive hits financially. Some 30% on average, they say, are not going to come back after this and come back from this. And so I think we always try and tell the uplifting and positive stories about the great things LGBT businesses are doing, because they're doing amazing things. But there is another reality for so many business owners right now, who don't even have the opportunity to say, I'm pivoting anymore. They didn't have the revenue to be able to last that long. They didn't get access to the loans they needed. So I think there's sort of two sides to that coin right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the success is measured about how quickly you can respond to the situation that you've been dealt with. And I know that probably less than 30 days into the pandemic, like Sabrina said, we actually had to pivot everything to online modules, right? We had to figure out a way to how not only make our services engaging and meaningful and impactful, but we had to work with our clients who had who took some serious financial hits in the departments that usually fund the types of services that we provide organizations. So we definitely had to pivot and pivot quick. And I'll tell you one way that I've actually been able to navigate through this without, throwing the towel in and saying, I'm done with this. And that is, I've had to reframe this whole pandemic as something that's happened for me and not to me. And so now, all of us are realizing that the way we knew business before the pandemic, we're probably never going to go back to that again. So this is an opportunity. And one thing that's happened with our business is, before travel was a barrier because clients had to pay for travel. Now the accessibility is just off the charts. So everybody is bringing as many folks to the table as they can to have these conversations. So while it's been challenging, there's also been invitations and opportunities for us to say, how can we do business a little different and better?
So I'm going to piggyback off of a little piece of what Sabrina mentioned. She talked a little bit about digital transformation. I'd say we really kind of had the leg up because we are a technology company. And so we saw this as a great opportunity because there's a lot of organizations, and Gabrielle, you just kind of mentioned one too, right? So how do you take your current offering and put that in a virtual setting, right? And so that was something that we really saw as, an offering that companies couldn't say no to, right? So there were two areas of business that we really grew exponentially during COVID, and that was our virtual workforce initiative, which is basically taking, everything that they were doing in office, that a company was doing in office, and virtualizing it for them. So layering their technology so that whether it be with Zoom, different types of CRMs, places where they could collaborate online, file sharing, things of that nature, because a lot of companies really just did not know how to do that. The second offering that we really kind of beefed up during COVID was our cybersecurity offering. There's been, and I'm sure everyone's heard of, all of the different hacks and security issues that have come about due to COVID. And so we really saw that there was a gap in understanding of, security and how to stay in business, and additionally, a company's reputation. So we've really seen opportunity during COVID.
I love that what you just said, that it didn't happen to me, and I think that's so important. It's shifting our mindset to how we can react to things that are going on, and as LGBT individuals, we've had to shift our mindset and how we've reacted to things that have happened to us in our environments our entire lives. And I think we have a leg up on business owners because we've had so much adversity throughout our lives and we've had challenges to overcome. And I think that helps. And the LGBT business owners I talk to are such strong, and they're so smart and just set with what they're going to do in their business that it's amazing to see. I'd love to learn a little bit about, so we talked about there's all these resources out there and it's hard to find them. If you had to pick just one, pick a resource that was great, we've had the NGLCC that we've talked about, but is there a partner out there that, really helped you when you were starting your business, whether it was a professional in a professional service or, a mentor or a friend? And what was some great advice that they gave you? Go right ahead.
So for me, the lion's share of our work, is diversity training. And we actually had a colleague, friend, who actually saw the need in bringing our services to the workplace. And he actually invested in our company by filming our 2 online training modules, which companies actually purchase now to train all of their employees around trans and non-binary inclusion. So, had it not been for his vision to see this as something that could not only long-term benefit the workplace, but also create this alliance partnership with our firm and his firm, who knows that it would not exist today. So, it's folks like that it's those angels in waiting that are just kind of, waiting in the wings to show up and say, how can I help? How can I be of assistance to you?
That's great. And it's partnerships.
It is
so important. And, it's the thing that it's all, I always say, you're getting in, when people get certified and they talk to me, it's your first step. Now you've got to work it.
right.
And partnership is a great way to work it. And really, it was probably based off of a conversation you had, and that person got to know you and what you're capable, what your organization was capable of. So that's great. Anyone else have a story like that? A great partner from starting your business, or Sabrina, even partners that you see some of the certified businesses have during their first couple of years?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. I think so frequently, I was just speaking with a business owner about this last week, that if you are sort of the sole one that has birthed your idea, so to speak, your business becomes like your baby, and it becomes very difficult to take sort of all the claws and teeth that you have sunk into this business and this idea and really give up the reins and bring other people in. But sometimes it's really, really important to, not sometimes, I think all the time, but particularly as business owners, what is the thing, or what are the things that you're doing that you are not excelling in? What are you not thriving in? And who can you bring in to consult with, to either consult on that work or take joint ownership of that company, right? Where do you excel, and who can play on those strong suits? Because that's only going to allow you to grow your business further, right? And it's about identifying the right person, having trust, all of these pieces need to be at play. But the answer is if you're spending 45% of your time working on Project X, and Project X is not at all helping you grow and scale that company, but it's something that's bogging you down, what can you be doing with that 45% of time that's going to allow you to go into a growth mindset and have somebody else come in to take that over? And sometimes it's as simple as having an EA or a special assistant or chief of staff come in who can handle some of those moving parts, because I find a lot of times business owners are super creative. They've got it in their head. But in terms of getting all their ducks in a row, it helps to have another person keep you accountable. Really, a boss to be your boss, I think, is so important. And I guess my example of a partnership that's akin to that is my relationship with our co-founder and president at NGLCC. I started as his executive assistant like 6 years ago. And we quickly grew into this relationship that was so much more than I'm scheduling your meetings and making sure that you're in the right place at the right time. And he, before that, was so vehemently opposed to having somebody come in that capacity, right, in his life. And now he has me in the capacity that I'm in now, and he has an EA, because things need to move. And he realizes, like, oh, wow, things really happen a lot more differently when I'm able to let go of the reins. And I think this is something he would say himself, if when I'm able to let go of the reins on something, put my trust in somebody else to execute upon that vision. And then I can step in still with the final thoughts or the team thoughts, and we can bring it all to the team and whatever that's going to take. But I think that allows us to really grow and thrive and create so many new programs and initiatives for our business owners that we serve.
You know, that's such an important point, because it's really hard for us to look inside and see what needs to change. And sometimes that's a challenge. So having those external forces and conversations, you know, really can help with, it's that neutral opinion that, you know, it's not, we don't take it too personally, and it's hard. I think that's, you know, your business is your brand, it's your blood, sweat, and tears, and having someone come and take that hard look inside really helps to make sure you're going down the right path of building. Gabrielle, who would you talk to us a little bit about a great partner for you as you were starting out?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity many years ago before I started my business to work for some pretty big companies like Booz Allen Hamilton, Northrop Grumman, CACI, SAIC, and fortunately for me, I was able to go back to some of those companies and people that still work there, and ask them to kind of take a look at what I was creating, and also to see if potentially I could do some business with them, and that's really kind of how I started early on, was leveraging those prior relationships that I had. I had great performance there, so I was able to go back into that pot and dip in a little bit and ask for some help. So that's what it was like for me in the early days.
Oh, that's great. And it's still, those people you come across in your life are always going to be there, and that you never know what capacity, you can work with them in. I say bankers are probably the most underused resource out there. And, we have pools and connections, and I always say, have conversations with us, because you never know what connections we can make resource wise. It's always a great thing, because I have a toolkit of resources for the business owners I come in contact with, because I can't offer everything. I wish I could, but I can't. So having that resource, I never want to say no. I always want to offer an alternative or a suggestion. And by, keeping track of the people you come across in your path can help as you get older in your business. I do see we have another comment in there. Lester was agreeing with Gavriel, and also thought that it's made a lot of room for those of us who really think outside of the box. And, COVID has really given us the opportunity to think outside of the box, and how we've reinvented ourselves. I know we've used the word pivot this year. It's probably the most used word of 2020, because we really had to learn how to pivot and move quickly as a business owner, because you have rents, you've got payroll. That's one of the hardest things, but we are coming close to the end. So I want to ask once again, if you have any questions, please push them in the chat box, so that our esteemed panel can answer some of them. But as we're waiting for some questions, I'd love to know, the one thing that keeps you up at night. I know it's that loaded question, but the one thing in business that keeps you up at night.
Somebody else go first.
I'd say for me, as being the CEO of my company and really caring about my employees, making sure that there's always work in the pipeline, right? I really care about, making sure that everyone stays gainfully employed. Obviously, COVID hit us, and at first it was pretty scary, right? But we realized that, as I mentioned before, there were some areas that we really could, help other businesses. And so I'd say, making sure that we're or that I am able to, keep business, coming in, finding people that can really, really create impact for my customers, or our customers. So I'd say that's probably my biggest thing that keeps me up at night.
I think it's really important. You've talked about creating jobs for your community and teams, and I could see that being the thing that keeps you up at night because of wanting to give back and build wealth in our community.
So for me, I'm a purpose-driven entrepreneur, and I need to know that I'm making a difference in the world. And, making sure that our message, making sure our content, making sure our services are relevant, that we're meeting our clients where they are, and we're actually providing a value to them. Just making sure that I'm not forgetting anything, I'm not missing anything. I'm supporting the clients the way they need to be supported. It's just the whole relationship dynamic. It's being relevant. You throw all that in the box, the pot, and stir it up, and there you have. That's why I stay up at night.
I think for me, it's sort of twofold, because I think your two, greatest assets, and a nonprofit like NGLCC, people think that nonprofit means no profit, and it doesn't. It's a business. It just has a different tax structure. So I think for me, the things that really stand out, what keep me awake at night, one are we going to be able to continue delivering opportunity and programs and initiatives for our LGBT business owners who are our end users, so to speak, right? Are we going to be able to continue to provide them with value to continue to grow and scale their companies? And then the other side, the other thing that is most important that you can't have to help the end user is your human capital, right? The team. I love our team. I think that we have one of the best teams out there. Maybe I'm biased, but I want to make sure that my team is supported, and I want to make sure that they understand that we know how much they're working and how much they're contributing and how things have gone into overdrive. We pivoted, pivot, the word of the year, along with authenticity and innovation, that to make sure that our certification could be done virtually, to make sure that we were, like I said, delivering on programs, which many of which are going to stick around beyond this, to continue to make sure that our corporate partners are getting value out of their partnership and still getting access to LGBT business enterprises. And so those I think are the biggest pieces for me. And when I think about the LGBT business owner, I think about, are they going to be able to weather this storm right now? And I think we have a great conversation coming up tomorrow night here again on access to capital, because that was, I think, one thing we didn't talk about is one of the biggest challenges. And I think that's a huge tangible challenge, especially as we're talking about the TG&C business community, access to loans and lending and so on and so forth, to actually make those ideas and those leaps of faith and those courageous steps forward happen. So I'm excited to have that conversation tomorrow as well.
Yeah, thank you. Tomorrow night, 7:00, tune in. It's going to be called Owning It, the Entrepreneurial Journey. And we do have two questions that just popped up. One is, do you have any advice for connecting with the right people in the beginning, especially looking for those that are also passionate and will work well together? And that's for any of you that like to reply to that.
I will jump in. I think the most important thing you can do is going back to what Gavriel said earlier, which is show up to the spaces that are designed for business owners, whether it's your local LGBT Chamber of Commerce, or if you belong to other diverse groups, showing up to those programs, industry specific places as well, and taking the opportunity to meet people in the room. I have never been in a networking space where somebody says they don't want to talk to another person, but oftentimes the ability to meet somebody can turn into a LinkedIn or a Facebook connection, can turn into, hey, what a cute dog, can turn into, hey, I have this contract for you because I remember you and your company that provides X, Y, or Z. So I think really being intentional about the spaces that you're inserting yourself into are very, I think, is key at the onset.
Awesome.
And I will, and I will build on what Sabrina just said. And as you're showing up in these spaces, make sure you understand who your ideal client is. Because if you're trying to chase somebody that's not someone that is going to be a good fit for you, that effort may be a learning process, which could be valuable. But I mean, is it going to be yielding any kind of residual as a result of that connection? So understanding, being very, strategic and intentional about who your ideal client is, and then showing up in those spaces and say, hey, I have the service that can touch your pain point.
So I just wanted to, Liam had a question real quick that I just wanted to address. And Liam, in addition to the Chambers of Commerce for business support, there's some amazing organizations out there called the Small Business Development Centers that work with the SBA. They're at all the local colleges in the area. They give free services, from legal services to building business plans, helping access capital. And come back tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, because we're going to touch on a lot of those resources in our Owning It, the entrepreneurial journey. And we are just at our 8 o'clock hour, and I want to thank all of our panelists today for really sharing their experiences, showing us what it's like to be courageous, live your authentic selves, and enjoy what you're doing every day. So thank you all. If you have any questions, their names are on the screens. I'm sure you can find them online. One might even have a book came out recently that you should go and take a read on. And I will see you all tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. I hope to see you all back. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Gabrielle and Gabrielle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to be a part of this.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.